Sorry for that technical glitch. Well, we lost Mr. Jason for a while. He's talking to us from other side of the globe. So these things do happen. So while he was talking about the changing landscape and how it has changed in the last few years, and how do we have to now cope up with it. So over to you, Mr. Jason.
Thank you. So we were at this slide, and I've gone through the Foreign Intelligence Service threats, criminal groups, insiders, and issue-motivated groups. So I'd like to go on to the next slide, please. Now, I pulled this out of a very recent magazine, only a month old, and I pulled it out because I wanted to give you an idea of what the impact of cybercrime was. If you look at this, $6 trillion globally. The cybercrime activity is the third largest economy after the United States and China. So if you think of cybercrime as a global country, it is nearly as big as US and China in terms of dollar amounts. It's really worth going onto the web to look at the issues around the cost of this. And we've seen it going from $3 trillion 2015, doubling by 2021. So this is a major impact on our society, and I think I will talk about other areas of security, but I will talk a little bit more about cyber. Next slide, please. The other big area of concern, particularly brought about by the failure of societies under wartime or drought, famine, etc., is the opportunity for criminals to become involved in human smuggling and, worse still, human trafficking. The United Nations has brought in rules about the prevention of modern slavery, and a number of countries have introduced rules to ensure that big companies don't accidentally use the product of human slavery. So again, criminal networks spread particularly in parts of Europe, between those coming out of the countries of the Middle East trying to get to European nations. People smuggling and then trafficking, particularly of children and young women, is a horrendous crime, but it also has grown very, very much. And it's important for law enforcement and security people to be aware of this. Next slide, please. The other issue is drugs. Only 2 days ago, I was watching a film about the changing drug nature of drugs coming out of Afghanistan with the Taliban, who have not been able to do anything about it, despite some of their intentions to do so. But their answer to the international community about this was, we can't do too much yet because there's no infrastructure for farmers to provide them with livelihood and support. But what is very worrying about this from an international law enforcement and from a community and social perspective is, for the first time, we're seeing methamphetamine factories built in outdoor areas mixing and merging with the heroin trade. So the massive network of heroin is now going to increase the impact of methamphetamine in our society. And for those of you who drug-related criminality, you'll know how much that creates additional problems, additional energy, crimes of violence. So we're seeing that change occurring. Next slide, please. Now, I've put up a little chart here, and this is a model for the relationship between the areas of security: physical security, cyber security, information security, personnel security, and how they work together within a protective security framework. So there's all these external threats we've talked about: criminal, terrorism, issue-motivated groups, espionage, and of course the insider. So when you're looking at building security for your enterprise, for your business, issues around the enterprise itself and your objectives, how it's managed, its governance, having a security management program that manages the elements of where business might need protection from the threats to security. I won't go into this in detail, but for those who are interested, we're producing a paper on what I call security convergence, which is how you bring together the personnel, cyber and value to information concepts. And I think many of the readers here, many of the people attending here will enjoy this, and I'll certainly make it available to the IISSM to distribute to the members. Next slide, please. This is also another way of looking at an organisation. The concept of security convergence means unless you think about all the ways you produce security, good personnel practices, good vetting practices, good computer security practices, understanding the value of your assets and information and determining the level of protection that's needed, unless all those things work and you think about them in terms of a balance between the accessibility for those that need to use it or access it, maintaining integrity so it's not distorted, diluted, changed in such a way that its value is decreased, and last of all, setting a value on it, the level of confidentiality needed to set the price of access, so that you think about vetting people, passwords in the cyberspace, physical security controls, but you need to make it a balance. So when you think about the need to know, it's very important to think who needs access to digital data, physical assets, information, co-workers to do their job properly, and be very active in analysing it and building systems around the security programs to allow that to happen. Next slide, please. I want to touch on this. As mentioned in my introduction, I chair one of the international committees, and it's one for risk management. In the risk management standard, ISO 31000, which was updated in 2018, there's a methodology for assessing risk. And this can be applied to the assessment of security-related risks by conducting a range of information, understanding of stakeholders. I haven't sufficient time to go through how you develop a security risk analysis, but it's an important thing to look at. Very soon there'll be the publication of the Risk Management Handbook from International Standards, and here in Australia we're revising a handbook on security-related risks for business. Similarly, I'm working with our Department of Home Affairs to do a guide for business for critical infrastructure. So all of them, however, are based on an understanding of risk. So it can be customised to fit an organisation that suits you. It could be only 4 or 5 people, but they might have something that they really need to protect. Or it might be a large corporation like Thales, where I work. Next slide, please. I pulled this one out because there's a lot of material that you can find about emerging trends. And one of the emerging trends that's been identified by Real Time Networks, which is a cyber consultancy firm, is recognizing that the merging of data technology, particularly in the area of biometrics, is changing the way we view people. So if you're involved in the security industry, you need to really start thinking about biometrics from an identification, authentication process. Now, some of you will already have it because it has been around, but it's going to be in everything. And I think, let's think of something, I don't know if in India, when you go into a lot of businesses, they'll actually take your temperature as one of the COVID check measures. Taking your temperature is a measure of biometrics, facial geometry, and so on. And I'm going to talk about the risks associated with metrics in this space a little bit later. So the mobility around security, the use of drones, the use of autonomous tracking devices. I know some of the big factories here already have small robots that travel around and can report. Some of them also do aerial scans of the big sites, so a control center can be alerted to any anomaly. We're going to see more of that coming forward, and that's going to change the face, particularly of security based on people guarding buildings. People need to be concerned about where they're sourcing their technology. You can introduce a risk into your business by sourcing technology from the wrong place or perhaps the wrong country. I won't go into details of that, but with number 4, I've already talked about convergence. Once a lock was just a lock. Now a lock is something that tells who's in and out of the door, how long it's been open, how long it's been closed, what's coming out, communicating it all to a data network that can be analysed over a period of time to determine usage, not just the amount of usage, but often who the usage is. And then with the smart technology and analytics that goes behind that. When you get lots and lots of data, you can start to see patterns. Now, I use analytics, particularly in the analysis of our email traffic coming in and out, etc., to determine where the threats are coming from. And I must say, I had a surprise this month when I turned out to be number 2 out of the top 20 people being attacked in the cyber world. Luckily, no attacks got through, but we monitor that to determine what the cause of those changes are. In this particular case, the increase of attacks came from me doing a public conference like this, which focused people on me. So if I have a few more attacks after this, I'll blame the IISSM. But we have a defence against that. But we monitor who's being attacked, and all the data that's coming in, all the emails, the nature of them tells us, do we have to update the security briefing of the person? So it goes right back to people again. The person who's getting those needs a high level of awareness. So there's also lots of other analytics that can do from an intelligence collection perspective about behaviours and so on. So we'll move on to the next slide, please. Now, the thing that's really changed because of COVID is the hybrid work environment. 80% of leaders and 75% employees are currently working in a hybrid model. While some employers, 54%, say lost productivity, many others have actually said there's been an increase in productivity. But there are issues around the security of the internet and the leakage of sensitive data. For example, in our company, we had a massive campaign to equip people with the equipment they needed to work with virtual private networks. We increased the level of monitoring. If people wanted to print from home or use a USB stick, that was monitored and tracked. So if anything out of the ordinary was there, we could detect it. So the hybrid work environment is one where there's an increase in security risk unless you take a range of actions, which includes additional training for people, supplying the right equipment and the right network to reduce the risks. Next slide, please. So the other thing that relates to the last slide is the home is changing. We have so many devices coming in our home. The idea is 44 plus million professionally monitored security systems around the world, an increase of 54 million in 2024, we believe. So it's going to grow and grow. So the hardware that becomes part of your house, artificial intelligence to analyze the alarms and determine whether they're correct or not. Really important video analytics to determine what's going on in a work or home environment. And then we're going to see Wi-Fi sensing, home radars, etc. And we're going to see changes in the building trade for building apartments and homes that are fully wired. Though I must admit, it's sometimes embarrassing for me. I have Google Home, and occasionally when I'm on a call or a conference like this, the AI in the Google Home will think I'm asking a question, and it will come out with this voice saying, sorry, I did not understand the question. And the people on the other end think I've got someone with me, but in fact, it's the AI picking up something in the discussion that enables respond. So we will have live monitors with their own artificial intelligence in our homes. And if we don't think about the security implications of that, it's going to be a very interesting time for those who want a bit of privacy. Next slide, please. Okay, you'll see in this slide a couple of things put together. You'll be able to read it when you get the slide pack, but you see the model we had earlier of the threats against a company. The other circle shows the steps of risk management, but the bit in the middle, which I've taken from South Park, is that none of this works unless you work with people. It's people who do good security, it's people who breach security, it's people who spy, it's people who respond, it's people who take action to protect the company and protect others, and it's people who are attackers. So whatever technology you use in cyberspace, whatever physical technology you use to protect a physical building or an enterprise, think about how people operate within it. So next slide, please. Understanding human behavior is really critical. It's about psychology. It's about, I'm just getting a message here from IISSM. I better see what it is. Is he asking me to log in again? No. Excuse me, folks. He's asked me to relog it again. I think that was the previous one. So back to this. So psychology of how people operate. human factors. All of these things make a difference. And I'm still getting messages from the folk, but anyway, I'll ignore that unless someone else sends me another message. So crime, science, and economics. We're understanding more about why people commit crime. What are the economic drivers? So if you're involved in preventing criminal activity, this is very important. So next slide, please. Okay. Human factors, as I mentioned before, it's about the science of working with people. The human factors originally came out of looking at aircraft and how pilots behave, etc. But now we can look at a work environment and see how people look at safety, security, reduce errors, enhance comfort, increase productivity. When you integrate security into a business, you have to think about its effect on other behaviors. So it's a mix of the engineering designs for the place you work. And when you're building security in, you need to make it enabling, but still able to get the result of protecting the things you need to protect. So when you apply the need to know to a physical environment, in terms of putting up barriers, locks, controls, gates, fences, you need to be thinking about the psychological impact. No one wants to work in something that seems like a prison. So you need to design your workplace to facilitate security. And for those who are interested in some of the modelling being done on what they call crime protection through environmental design, there's some great material you can read on that. And in the international standards world, we're actually producing some standards and guidance on enhancing security through environmental design. And that's available from the Standards Organisation. Next slide, please. Okay, I just put this up because you can see it when you get your slide pack. This is vetting. If you don't recruit the right people, you're going to get the wrong result. We've introduced very formal vetting processes. That's determining, is a person a fit and proper person, an honourable person, to have access to those things you wish to protect in order to do their job. And the other thing that's really important about this process is it doesn't stop on recruitment. You need to be in a position where supervisors and managers are in a position to raise concerns about the behaviour of staff and therefore trigger another review of their ongoing suitability from a security perspective. I'm not talking about work performance here, although that can be an indicator of a security problem. I'm talking about those things that might affect security. So again, you'll be able to see this chart in detail. Next slide, please. Okay, this slide takes you through a range of those behavioural issues. This one also applies to behaviour in cyberspace. So you'll see on this slide there's a reference to International Standard 27001. Anyone in this group who works with in cyberspace or in information and telecommunications technologies will be aware of that standard. It is the standard to assess the security of a cyber system. So the behaviours of people around behaviour, their acceptance, how it's implemented, is a human factor. It's not about the zeros and ones. I think it's very, very important to understand that when you're engaging people and the way they work in cyberspace. Next slide, please. Now, which one is Tom Cruise? Obviously, this is what's called a deep fake, and this is about people. So let's go to the next one. There's another deep fake. One of these is not Barack Obama. So what someone has done is re-engineer Barack Obama, and then they can simulate his words, and there have been deep fakes of him making speeches that he never made. Now, recently there's been a case where the people penetrated a company, set up a fake company, and through a series of emails made it look like there was a merger going on. They then deep faked the voice of the CEO. So the chief finance officer of the company had seen these emails. He gets a call from the CEO, whose voice he immediately recognizes, who said, look, we need to move forward on the payment in order to close the deal. Well, the CEO tells the chief finance officer, we've got to move forward. They do that, and $30 million went to the deep fake scammer. And it was too late to get it back. Next slide, please. These people are all fake. They're not real people. They've been manufactured from other people. So they can create videos, create voices. So you have to trust what you see, but if you don't verify that's the person you're dealing with, the more important the decision you're making in respect to the person you're dealing with, the more important it is to verify that that's who they are. And we're going to see more and more of that. One of the great fears of people is the use of your face and pictures that have been done and be used for blackmail, pornography, and things like that. So if you post material about your family on the web and you're in a high level position, you're now starting to open yourself to a compromise that never occurred before. Next slide, please. You go to the next slide. We dropped out again. Oh, here we go. This is what I call an iterative intelligence model. So to understand the threat, you actually, and to do a risk assessment, you have to collect information, you need to analyze and collate it, and you need to produce a report that says this is the threat from this group to the company. And that's the first point in determining what you should do in placing security controls. Physical, cyber, the level of investigation you do on new employees, the maintenance of investigation on existing employees. But if you don't have a model that looks at the sources of security risk to your business, that could be criminal or espionage, doesn't matter. If it's a security risk, you need to be monitoring who they are, what they're doing, and you might have to use open source monitoring. If you've got good relationships with police or government agencies, they can help you do that. But unless you're doing that, you really can't determine the level of security you need on any of the security practice areas of cyber, physical, human, and information. Next slide, please. Okay, what I do when I'm doing this, I determine the priorities of where I have to actively monitor. I won't go through this in detail. We lost a little bit of time, but I want to get through a couple of other bits as well. But you can set priorities based on your business where you focus your information gathering, or you just use open source reporting that's available in the general media. Next slide, please. I do want to talk about cyber threats. Anyone that picks up anything in the news, and we now have a major what they call zero-day effect, which is now being picked up as a major attack vector. Some of the firms in the United States were calling it a cyber Armageddon. So there's all sorts of things. Obviously, ransomware has been very important. So we might go on the next slide and have a look at some of these things in a bit more detail. So next slide, please. This is a really interesting one. This was a ransomware attack on Accenture, one of the world's biggest cyber advising companies. So even the best can get caught, and this one came through a third-party vendor. So you really have to know your supply chain and any risk, particularly your cyber supply chain, and any risks that arise from it. So they were demanding 50 million in exchange for the data that was collected. They claimed that they had 6 terabytes of data. Next slide. So this is how this works. This has been downloaded from group IB. You can examine through a number of the providers of cyber advice how they approach these sorts of attacks. I would recommend that if you have a business that's dependent on cyber, and what business isn't dependent on cyber, you do that. So this Prometheus tool, freely available on the web, engineered by cyber hackers who then have been using it to implement a malicious ransomware campaign. Next slide, please. This case is a really interesting one too, where the ransomware breached over 30 organizations and they brand themselves R-Evil. Great name. Now, the United States government has gone after them and taken a lot of their bank accounts, so R-Evil is closed down. But before the US government acted against them, they had been very successful, and they used the Prometheus traffic direction system mentioned in the last model. So it's really worth having a look at some of these cases. You can download case histories for free from FireEye Mandiant, CrowdStrike, and a couple of the other top line providers of security intelligence for cyber. Next slide, please. So if you are wanting to bring someone in to help you, there's a list of questions. Not everyone can maintain a cyber capability. This question number 2 is aimed at Australia, where we have the Essential 8 But you can download the Australian guidance on cybersecurity yourself from our Australian Signals Directorate, and it gives you 150 or so cyber controls. There are others as well that do that. But when you have a look at this list, when you get these slides, if you're going to employ a cyber security partner or service, you should try and make them answer these questions. If they can't answer the questions, they may not be the company you want. Next slide, please. So, if you don't look at open source information, you don't look at the data breach research that I mentioned from FireEye and Mandiant and others, and you need to bring this to the attention of the board of directors. So I spend a bit of time with my team looking at what our board of directors and senior managers are doing in terms of the web. They agree to this because we can monitor anything that might make them susceptible to attack. So as a company, again, dealing with aerospace, defence, high technology, we have hundreds and hundreds of serious attempts to breach our system every week. We're very lucky because A, we have well-trained staff, B, but sometimes something gets through and we've had to do major work when it has. I can safely say we've never had a significant data loss, but we've come quite close sometimes. There's an old saying amongst the people that have been involved in this for a while. If you say you haven't had a cyber attack, that means you don't know. So you need to know, because then you can help your staff understand the risk. Next slide, please. So think about things. When people are going to fake your company and perhaps try and get money out of one of your customers, try one of your suppliers, creating false invoices, you need to look at those things. You need to look at where you're storing your company directory. You need to produce pins and logons. You need to collect the data from your firewalls. We've already mentioned home internet security as part of the hybrid working environment. One of the things that people forget to do is turn off old accounts of former employees. So you need to monitor who actually has access to your system. And last of all, traditional security. What are you throwing out in the rubbish that someone with malicious ideas who's against your company can find and use to their advantage? I think it's very important that you watch what leaves your company, even by accident. Next slide, please. So in summary, if you're going to address security, you need to know your company's goals, you need to understand how you'll achieve your objectives, and you need a strategy for doing them. But in order to do that, there are people who don't agree with your goals, want to steal your objectives, want to undermine your strategy, steal your information, steal your assets. So you need to understand the security sources of risk, those that threaten you, and you need to analyze the vulnerabilities you have as an enterprise. Consider how those two things intersect. If there's no threat, the vulnerability may not matter. I sometimes say to people, I had a farm in the country. I didn't bother to lock the door because there was no threat. If I lived in the city, however, of course, an unlocked door is a high vulnerability. So you need to think about that in your business context. Use this intelligence-based model. Collect, collate, analyze, and inform, and then again, monitor and review on a regular basis, because the world is changing so rapidly. So be prepared, be ready to take action to mediate any known threat and be able to respond effectively. And I think that's probably the last slide, and I think I'm out of time. So can we go to the last slide, I think? Yes, if time questions. Now, I don't know from the panel whether I'm capable of taking questions or whether we've run out of time. So over to our manager for the conference. Thank you.
So change is the only constant, but change felt and seen by humanity in the last 2.5 years has been phenomenal and life-changing. This, coupled with the exponentially changing technology, calls for constant endeavors to keep adapting, to keep evolving, because security is not a product, it's a process. And how we have to respond to the changes around us and keep achieving our business objectives. Throwing light on that was Mr. Brown from Australia. Thank you so much for giving us insights on the topic, Mr. Brown. It was wonderful presentation. So thank you once again. And now let's straightaway sail into our inaugural session.
Balam,
So, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the International Institute of Security and Safety Management, I welcome you all once again, all the distinguished guests, esteemed
इसको
dignitaries, and
कोड दूसरा
respected
चेंज हो गया मतलब
the
ये
31st
आ गया दूसरा
IISSM Conclave 2021. May I request Mr. Srivastava, sir, kindly if you can mute yourself. And I would also like to remind all the people, all the dignitaries who are there with us on the screen to kindly mute themselves. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Srivastava. So it's a great privilege to accord a special welcome to our chief guest of the inaugural session, Sri Amit Khare, retired IAS officer, advisor to Honorable Prime Minister of India, Sri Narendra Modi. Welcome, sir. Welcome to our inaugural session. And we would also like to welcome amongst us Mr. S.K. Sharma, retired IPS, former DG, IISSM, Sri R.K. Sinha, former MP, Rajya Sabha and Executive Chairman, IISSM, Sri Uday Singh, Chairman, IISSM Foundation, Mr. G.M. Srivastav, IPS retired and President, IISSM, and of course, Mr. Rajan K. Medekar, IPS retired, former DG at SG and DG IISSM. To begin with, may I request all of you to kindly rise for the national anthem, and you may tilt your cameras, your computer as you do that. Thank you.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मागे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
And now I'd like to request Honorable Chief Guest Sri Amit Khareji to light the virtual ceremonial lamp, and I would also request other dignitaries to kindly join him. And now may I request Sri S.K. Sharma, retired IPS, former DG NCRB, and Chairman IISSM, to deliver the welcome address.
Honorable Shri Guest, Chief Guest Shri Amit Khare, Advisor to the Prime Minister of India, Shri R.K. Sinha, former Member Parliament, Rajya Sabha and Executive Chairman IISSM, Shri G.M. Srivastav, retired IPS, President IISSM, Mr. Uday Singh, Chairman IISSM Foundation, Shri Rajan Medekar, retired IPS, Director General IISSM, special invitees, keynote speakers, panelists, And finally, our very dear delegates to this conclave, who are the raison d'etre, or shall I say, center and circumstances and circumference of this conclave. It augurs well for the IISSM and the Indian private security industry to have Shri Khare as the chief guest, as he is a highly experienced administrator who, after completing a successful career in the IAS, is now advisor holding such a prestigious and highly responsible position in the government of India at the national level. I will not miss this opportunity, therefore, to say that it's the time the government of India looked at the of this highly potential industry, which has acquired the status of first line of defense for the police. Maybe Shri R.K. Sinha, a mentor of the IISSM and a stalwart security entrepreneur, will like to dwell on this subject now or excuse me, at a more suitable occasion later. For the delegates, I will say that there is no gainsaying that India has been increasingly facing internal and external security problems. Private security plays a crucial role during disturbed conditions in and around industries and businesses, apart from securing educational and healthcare and other such vulnerable institutions, as well as virtually all residential colonies in the cities. Well trained private security personnel are in best position to perceive the developing situations and react to nip them in the bud. Therefore, training and upskilling of the private security personnel are of crucial importance. Development of frontier technologies developing at an accelerated rate is another area which needs to be harnessed to bring in improved productivity and proactivity in the private security as a first line of defense in internal security. In every annual conclave, we sensitize the security practitioners from all over the country and abroad about different techniques and technologies and how these time and cost efficient inventions have helped security professionals to overcome problems which, to start with, appeared near impossible or uneconomical to tackle. Introduction to techniques like data analytics, artificial intelligence, lessons learned in dealing with a pandemic and disasters and analysis thereof. We have all this to go through to place ourselves in a condition that we are able to face the problems in future. We have chosen highly placed experts with varied experience to interact with the delegates and with each other to share their perceptions and domain knowledge. I am sure, like the previous conclaves, the delegates this time too will freely interact with the panelists and make them aware of their experiences of technology use or difficulties faced in manual systems. This conclave is not the end of learning and by no means gives you the last word on the techniques. In fact, this is a primer, it's a beginning, and it is the primer uh, of the domains which it has dwelled upon to give you a variety of options available. It's for you to pick and choose the options which have a bearing on your problems or work environment and then learn more by personal studies or training programs on these technologies and techniques. With these words, I wish all delegates happy learning over 2 days and a bright future in their respective careers. I once again welcome the chief guest Shri Khare to this inaugural function. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sharma, for your welcome address. And may I remind all our honorable dignitaries here once again to kindly unmute yourself when you are speaking. Otherwise, keep yourself on mute. Thank you so much. And now for the introductory remarks, may I please request Executive Chairman IISSM and former Rajya Sabha MP, Sri R.K. Sinhaji.
Dear Mr. Khare, Mr. Sharma, Mr. Srivastava, Mr. Uday Singh, Rajan Medikar, and all delegates, we are running behind schedule, and Mr. Khare is with us under his highly important position, and especially on a day when Prime Minister is in the office, he has a lot of problems because any time he has to be the Prime Minister. So I don't want to uh, waste much time. I just want to tell that this organization was established by me and Padma Shri K. Prasad, first batch topper of IPS, in 1990, because at that time we felt that the private security agency is emerging very fast and we have to standardize uh, this profession also, because at that time we perceived and rightly perceived that a point will come very soon when private security industry will, the manpower force will many-fold than the state police and the even central police organizations. This is what has happened today. We are more than 70 lakhs people working in the country today, and training and continuous training is the key of the success of our industry. With these words, I would request Mr. Khare to kindly deliver his inaugural speech.
Thank
Thank you
you,
so
Mr. R.K. Sinhaji, Mr. S.K. Sharma, Honorable Mr. R.K. Sinha, former Member of Parliament and Executive Chairman of IISSM, Mr. Srivastava, Mr. Uday Singh, Mr. Rajan Medhekar, all the invitees, panelists, speakers, distinguished delegates, a very good morning to all of you, and good afternoon to our friends from Australia, New Zealand, and the Southeast Asia. Let me start by thanking Mr. R.K. Sinha for building up this industry. Organizing a seminar is a very small part, but he has been instrumental in building up this industry in India and also bringing together all the experts, be they from the police services or the armed forces or the general administrators. Definitely, the concerns of security and the changing security that we have today need to be addressed and need to be addressed in a holistic manner. I would also like to congratulate the organizers, especially Mr. Sinha and the entire team, Mr. Sharma and Mr. Medekar, for bringing together a very good team of panelists. I had the advantage of listening to Mr. James Brown earlier today morning. In fact, I had joined around 10 o'clock when he had started his keynote address. And I was really glad to see that various aspects of security, starting from the local level to the national level, and the various dimensions. I heard him speak about human trafficking, smuggling, narcotics, the dark web, various facets, all of them being brought together. It's indeed really heartening, and I'm sure I may not be able to join it the other speakers, but definitely it gives us an idea as to the depth in which the keynote speakers and panelists are going in this aspect of security and safety. I'm not an expert on this subject, but let me just share with you that there is an individual level, the family level, where we are looking for security and safety. There is a slightly higher level, which is a professional level, could be a business concern. Above that is the industry level, a group of businesses or professions or industry. And finally, at the level of the nation state or the country, and now across the country, because there are certain organizations which have become a threat to the entire humanity, and therefore it is not only a concern which is limited only to national security, but even international security gets impacted, particularly in a globalized world that we live in. Another feature which comes to my mind is, and which we often find in our processes, that while technology is changing and we are upgrading our systems and also the legal provisions, the laws, but somehow the offenders are always ahead of the curve. So by the time we develop a system of checking the cyber security of the offices, we find that some new threats have emerged. Similarly, when we check the narcotics control, and India has a very strong law for prevention of narcotics and substance abuse. But now new methods of smuggling and transporting such narcotics and using those funds for terrorist operations are also being seen. Same thing is true for security of our banking systems, for our economy, and therefore discussions that we have today, and I'm really glad that they are focused on the future, because we always have to think ahead. What will be the security scenario in 2025, 2030, and then plan accordingly so that the law enforcing agencies, the security agencies, the industry, businesses, and above all, each citizen is empowered and also devoted to the cause of security, not only of his locality, not only of his state or province or of the country, but also of the entire humanity. I'm sure the discussions and the different sessions, the four important sessions that have been planned, they will throw a better light on all these aspects, and the outcomes of this international symposium, international conclave, will be helpful not only to India, but also to various countries and organizations across the world. With these words, I would again like to thank the organizers, particularly Mr. Sinha, for highlighting such an important subject. I would also like to thank the MC. I was observing since morning that she has been conducting the program very well. So let me congratulate all of you. Thank you very much. Namaskar.
Thank you so much, sir, for your inaugural address, for your best wishes, It is indeed an honor and privilege to have you amongst us today. So I would now request you to please present the IISSM Excellence Awards virtually, of course. So here they are. The IISSM Safety Excellence Award in Women's Safety goes to exlservice.com Private Limited.
Congratulations.
Can we have the next slide, please? The next award is the IISSM Industrial Sector Safety Award in IT and ITES, and it again goes to exlservice.com Private Limited. Are we changing the slides? Okay, this is the third one, sir. IISSM Safety Excellence Award in Safety Culture goes to PSI Pest Control Private Limited. Best Security Consulting Services Company is IIRIS Consulting. And IISSM Safety Excellence Award in Safety Culture goes to Tata Motors Finance Limited. Best Electronic Security Agency or Company, the award goes to Tata Power Delhi Distribution Limited. We're also giving COVID-19 Frontline Warrior Award in Healthcare Facility, Security, Safety and Housekeeping, Staff and Contract Staff. And this time it goes to Mr. Thamodaran Subbarao. So thank you so much, sir, for having presented these awards to our well-deserving awardees on this virtual platform. I now request Sri Rajan K. Medkar, a retired IPS, former DG NSG, and DG IISSM, to present a vote of thanks.
Thank you, Mridu. It's now my pleasant duty to propose a vote of thanks for our chief guest of the morning, Sri Amit Khare, IAS retired, presently the advisor to the Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji. But before I do that, I would like to wish all our delegates, our advertisers, sponsors, and also our award winners for having attended this inaugural ceremony. And I'm sure over the next 2 days, you all will have a lot of takeaways from this conference. As we all know, Sri Amit Kare has had an outstanding career as as a bureaucrat, and during which time his integrity, his transparency, and his ability to implement the complex policies of government were evident. Far more than that, his very selection as an advisor to none other than the Prime Minister of India shows us the kind of trust in his abilities as well as in his persona that the government places. I am sure that his short but relevant speech will set the tone for the overarching theme of this conclave. He touched upon a few points which I think all security professionals should take note of. He spoke of the larger picture of the security industry as a whole. As we all know, it is one of the largest employers in this country, and I think it is high time that the security industry itself takes up modernization in all its aspects. I thank Sri Amit Khare for having attended and inaugurated this conclave despite his very, very busy schedule. And I must apologize for the slight delay in starting the proceedings. This was due to technical reasons, and I'm sure all of us will understand. Once again, on behalf of IISSM, on behalf of our chairman, Shri S.K. Sharma ji, on behalf of Executive Chairman, Shri R.K. Sinha ji, on behalf of our IISSM Foundation Chairman, Shri Uday Singh, and our President, Shri G.M. Srivastav, and on my own behalf, let me thank Shri Khare for having attended and spoken at this event. I am sure that by the time all our delegates leave on the second day, they would have had a wonderful time, and I wish all of you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Namaskar.
So it's going to be a very interesting topic. We will straight away go to panel one discussion, but give us just a few seconds before that to set up the screen for our panel one. That was the inaugural session, and we thank all our dignitaries for the session, for their addresses. Well, the International Institute of Security and Safety Management, that is IISSM, is a non-profit educational institute. It was registered in 1992, but it was founded by Sinha ji in 1990. It's also registered with the Ministry of Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises, Government of India. And IISSM is committed towards promoting professionalism among security and loss prevention practitioners and creating all-round security awareness and consciousness amongst personnel in the related respective management cadre. So if we are ready for the panel one discussion, if we have all our speakers here, then we will straight away go into that. Otherwise, we will play a promo video or video. We have some audio visuals. So either an audio visual or straight away to panel one discussion. Let's see.
In 1944, a 7,000-ton ship loaded with ammunition exploded in the Bombay docks. Only one thing survived that blast: the first Indian safe, made by Godrej. That mission to make history continues.
When Queen visited India, she chose a Godrej safe to keep her jewelry and other valuables wherever she stayed in the country. For millions of Indians, the Queen's decision is no surprise at all. During the Gulf War, one of the few things that came through unscathed was a Godrej safe. It had resisted burglary, defied fire, and survived collapse of the building it was installed in. A similar incident occurred in a leading nationalized bank's branch at a refinery site in southern India during a major blast and fire. All the valuables stored inside the Godrej safe were found intact.
group is steadily heading towards to reach this goal and convert the dream into a reality. Unique Group believes in trust the young people, trust this generation's innovation, and all the consumers want new things. They want good and reliable things. They want unique things. If we assure them of our uniqueness, they will become our partners in the journey. To achieve this, we are unique in every way.
I wonder how soon and how quickly it has passed, and how we gathered an international popularity and recognition.
Over the last 2 to 3 decades, the private security industry has come a long way from a disorganized labor contracting business to a professional and very capable service industry that is supporting businesses, residences, and government of India in a very, very significant way today.
IISM, a perfect one. This 4 days of almost 23 hours program not only excelled my skills but served me with complete guidance in segregated sessions.
It has made a niche in the world, and I find eminent stakeholders coming for the session annually to India for participation.
Joint security industry, IISSM provided me the perfect gateway to the various aspects of this industry.
My journey with the IISSM began over 20 years ago when the founder, Mr. R.K. Sinha, invited me to read a paper at one of their international seminars.
I'm presently working as a loss prevention manager for 2 hotels, Coral Strand and Savoy. Recently, I did a CSP course from IISSM. The training was superb, and I genuinely enjoyed each and every moment of it.
It has contributed immensely in professional growth of individuals in the safety and security by training, by educating, and by inspiring.
IISSM over a period of time had developed a large resource of Indian and foreign security professionals as highly specialized faculties.
My heartiest congratulations to the chairman, Mr. R.K. Sinha.
Congratulations to the Honorable R.K. Sinha and fellow foundation members whose foresight all those years ago have been able to create a unique organization like IISSM.
I wish to congratulate IISSM.
R.K. Sinha, the pioneer in the matter of security in India. In India, nobody knows this concept of the security till R.K. Sinha came on the stage.
In 1944, a 7,000-ton ship loaded with ammunition exploded in the Bombay docks. Only one thing survived that blast: the first Indian safe, made by Godrej. That mission to make history continues.
When Queen visited India, she chose a Godrej safe to keep her jewelry and other valuables wherever she stayed in the country. For millions of Indians, the Queen's decision is no surprise at all. During the Gulf War, one of the few things that came through unscathed was a Godrej safe. It had resisted burglary, defied fire, and survived collapse of the building it was installed in. A similar incident occurred in a leading nationalized bank's branch at a refinery site in southern India during a major blast and fire. All the valuables stored inside the Godrej safe were found intact.
Unique Group is steadily heading towards to reach this goal and convert the dream into a reality. Unique Group believes in trust the young people, trust this generation's innovation, and all the consumers want new things. They want good and reliable things. They want unique things. If we assure them of our uniqueness, they will become our partners in the journey. To achieve this, we are unique in every way.
I wonder how soon and how quickly it has passed, and how we gathered an international popularity and recognition.
Over the last 2 to 3 decades, the private security industry has come a long way from a disorganized labor contracting business to a professional and very capable service industry that is supporting businesses, residences, and government of India in a very, very significant way today.
IISSM, a perfect one. This 4 days of almost 23 hours program not only excelled my skills but served me with complete guidance in segregated sessions.
has made a niche in the world, and I find eminent stakeholders coming for the session annually to India for participation.
When I joined security industry, IISSM provided me the perfect gateway to the various aspects of this industry.
My journey with the IISSM began over 20 years ago when the founder, Mr. R.K. Sinha, invited me to read a paper at one of their international seminars.
I'm presently working as a loss prevention manager for two hotels, Coral Strand and Savoy. Recently, I did a CSP course from IISSM. The training was superb, and I genuinely enjoyed each and every moment of it.
It has contributed immensely in professional growth of individuals in the safety and security by training, by educating, and by inspiring.
The IISSM over a period of time had developed a large resource of Indian and foreign security professionals as highly specialized faculties.
My heartiest congratulations to the chairman, Mr. R.K. Sinha.
Congratulations to the Honorable R.K. Sinha and fellow foundation members whose foresight all those years ago have been able to create a unique organization like IISSM.
I wish to congratulate IISSM.
Mr. R.K. Sinha, a pioneer in the matter of security in India. In India, nobody knows this concept of the security till R.K. Sinha came on the stage.
So, hello everyone once again. Welcome to the panel discussion. In fact, the first panel discussion of the 31st IISSM Global Conclave 2021. The topic for this panel discussion is amalgamation of ESS and man-guarding industry by 2030. And moderating this session is Mr. Shankar Subramaniam, President, We Protect. Mr. Shankar Subramaniam is a professional with over 20 years of experience in corporate India across technology, consumer durables, and industrial sectors. During this period, he has developed a deep understanding of the Indian business environment, successfully built profitable businesses in both MNCs as well as Indian companies, including startups, with strong focus on team building, environment, and stakeholder management, managing strategic challenges and excellence in execution. Presently, he's heading the business of SIS Prosegur also. Um, our esteemed panel is also here amongst us. Let me introduce all of these panelists one by one. We have with us Mr. Gurpavan Singh, or Gary. He's from IIRIS Consulting. Welcome, sir. He's a professional entrepreneur, understands India and South Asia extremely well, and has assisted numerous companies to establish and grow operations in India. He has worked at all stages of life cycle of companies, market research, initiation stage, growth stage, merger and acquisitions, and winding off. Having received many awards and commendations in his army career, he went on to learn and earn accolades in his industry career too. His company, IIRIS, won the Best Risk Consulting Company Award in 2017. He was recognized as the Best Security Auditor of the country in 2017. He's also been chairman of Security Code and member editorial board for Fire and Security Association of India, and member of many other companies and on board of many companies. Not to forget the accolades he received for exemplary crisis management during 26/11 Mumbai attacks. Welcome, sir. And we have on our panel Mr. Charlie Bennett, VP Europe, Safer, Real Networks. Welcome, Mr. Bennett. Well, he's a senior business development manager with experience in the software and security industry. He's the vice president for Real Networks for European Union market. Mr. Charlie is responsible for SAFR's growth across Europe. He has more than 9 years of experience with video analytics and facial recognition in the security industry, with his previous role being the head of sales for EMEA at Ipsotech. He has also spent 5 years in major video analytics and facial recognition deployments for airport and government projects. And then we have with us Mr. Mahinder Singh Karakoti. Welcome, sir. Well, he's been working with Schneider Electric India as security director for India for almost a decade now. Earlier, he had served in paramilitary forces, CISF, for over 5 years. Mr. Karakoti has in-depth experience of over 20 years in the field of corporate security and has worked with Indian and multinational companies. He's a certified ISO 27001 lead auditor and business continuity planner. He has an expertise in designing security for data centers, corporate offices, warehouses, ports, and large manufacturing units. So we welcome once again all the panelists. And now it's over to Mr. Shankar Subramaniam, the moderator of the session.
Thank you, Mridula, for a wonderful introduction. And I hope all the other discussions during the day will be as exciting as the topic we currently have. Good morning, gentlemen. It's a pleasure to have all of you as esteemed panelists to discuss an interesting topic on amalgamation of electronic surveillance system and man guarding industry. This topic is very close to my heart since I am also working on a similar project since last 6 years and trying to build some technology integration between man guarding and technology in the field of security business. The topic is very relevant not only for today but for the future as well. The concept of security is also fast changing, and the expectation from guarding companies are also changing. I hope we all agree on that part. The guard who was earlier responsible to man the premises with his physical presence need to do a lot more than what he was doing earlier. Thank all because of the pandemic or because of the situation what we had since last 2 years. I think the overall definition of guarding is also changing, and the expectations cannot be fulfilled without the use of technology. This I strongly believe and can be effectively implemented as well. In the last 2 years, the technology adaptation in the security space has been phenomenal. So is the case in other multiple sectors as well. As usage of AI is coming into play, tasks which are repetitive in nature can be handled effectively through machine learning. Using of technology has significantly improved the security concern. And but still a long way to go when we see a seamless marriage of man guarding and technology, and when we call it as a man tech solution. While we understand the importance of technology in the security space, we also need to understand how and what is required to make this effective going forward. The future of security is not just restricted to any intrusion, theft, burglary, fire, medical as what we define it, but is also extended to how the premises businesses are managed, which also includes how effectively the operations are carried out through a well-defined SOP, and how these SOPs are monitored in turn, and also helps in improving the operational parameter. Lastly, the technology adaptation is one of the way to manage cost in the future for securing the premises. Considering the rate at which the costs are going up, technology can be one of the important element in building up this cost benefit analysis. Having put a broad level framework premises, which I'm sure all of you are aware about or we can discuss about, I would like to get into straight away to the panel discussion and take input, seek advice, knowledge from all our esteemed panelists on this particular subject. My first question here to you, Mr. Gary, come from a very domain expertise, having worked on in various sectors, segments, etc. Uh, we would like to ask, like, why should a corporate house invest in modernization when major security functions are still done by physical resource? Because that is how a security industry is currently defined in context to our operations in India. So, why do you think, and why should corporates invest in a modernization? What is your thoughts on that?
Thank you, Mr. Subramaniam. And it's a very interesting way of looking at the security. And before answering that, I will also like to just spend few seconds to say that I'm grateful to IISSM that they continue to provide knowledge and whatever the future thought provoking is required. Not only they bring certain discussions, but they also bring a lot of thought provocation. And thanks to ISM for continuously leading the way for complete industry that way. And I'm very delighted to be among such elite panelists. And obviously, Mr. Subramaniam, you've been stalwart in your own domain. So wonderful to be in the same panel along with you. So coming back to what you said just about the question that why any organization should be looking at modernizing the security or other things. Well, it's a good way to look at it, but I do want to see it in a different perspective, and I do want to see that how security actually ever started for mankind. I really want to get into history lesson here. And when we look at security, it's been one of the basic needs, right? Even it's a need not only the mankind wants, even a deer needs security from lion. So since those days, whether we were doing whatever, those needs were there, and at the same time, as the human race continued to progress, the risk kept changing, and the risk mitigation also kept changing. Let's say the directly jumping to stage when the fortresses were there, uh, while you had the best of army, but you were working as a system. So not only even if it was uh, whether Ram and Ravan or Kauravas and Pandavas, those wars being fought, there was a system at play. So which means you will first of all make it difficult for somebody to even reach the king in the fort. Sometimes you will even do trenches in front. You will have your alarm systems or people who will warn you beforehand miles and miles ahead. And then at the same time, you may even have the trench ahead of the fort and you may put even crocodiles in it. So there was always a system at play. It was not a single man who was handling the security forever. So same thing, even in modernization, if you look at, is needed. So even if you, let's say, a strategic security such as for a country, it is again, you have radars to look inside your enemy airfields. You are now trying to counter drones. You are doing everything possible so that you get the alert at the earliest, so that you have a response mechanism which can be activated. So same thing, even for a building is as applicable. The same concepts are as applicable. And in fact, it's very unfortunate. Some of the risk which were there at the borders now have come to the buildings as well. Whether it's our homes or it's our offices, you may pick up data and you will realize in last 10 years, the number of people who have died in terrorist incidents are far more than wars.
What was? Yeah.
So,
Very
so,
true.
so terrorists have brought wars right at our doorstep, and we need to be as prepared and as geared and as conceptually right as the security professionals since ever have been, whether drafting forts, alarm systems. That's where the electronic surveillance system, that's where one of the biggest power which is available has to be well planned, has to be taken care, and that's where you have to take care of ESS or any other need. It's not only man standing there because man has limited ability. I can even see for few meters, whereas the cameras can see 10 kilometer, and even during night, not only identify but also track movement is which side. These days, the cameras have reached a stage that you are seeing a man coming in, but the camera will be able to identify whether man is carrying weapon, chemicals, radioactive material, biological. That's the power which ESS gives us. So conceptually, it has to be there. Second point I'd like to give is, if you look at even need based, which means the risks have changed. You don't have any more direct attacks. People want to be bringing something very discreetly. They have insider threats. There are different challenges which are popping up. So when your risks have changed, your risk mitigation also has to change and become far more smarter as your enemy has become. So it's also a risk based need, not only a conceptually. And maybe third point I like to say is see the market trend. Even the way security is being served, all large security guarding company are spending maximum money doing acquisition of electronic companies, and this is applicable globally. Even in India, we know the largest company has focused on technology so much. So so that's where I think there is no choice. You have to ensure that this amalgamation continues. And as you said, you've also put a timeline which I really appreciate, 2030. I think there should be a detailed paper done after this panel discussion, that by
Absolutely.
2030 possibly this will emerge as one security system. And I believe it may start happening or start becoming a reality even by 2024, 25, not even wait till 30.
Not a
Yeah.
Very true, Mr. Gary. I think you have put it in a very right perspective that while it is an important parameter to have integration of Mantech in place, but we also need to put a time frame and try to build a synergy over a period of next 3 to 4 years, where the happening can be of very high likelihood in a current scenario. I fully agree on that point. Taking the clue from that, my next question is here with Mr. Mahendra Singh Kakoti. Sir, I would like to understand while planning for a technology implementation, because still I would say the technology implementation is not fully integrated with the man guarding process, but the process has already been initiated at multiple levels. So while planning for this technology implementation, what are the parameters to be considered so that the effectiveness of the solution is maintained or improved upon? Because we always look at technology to take the security from say level 1 to level 2. So if that is the scenario what we are trying to build in, so what all things we have to keep in mind to build that whole solution? That is a question with lot many customers also, because when we go and when I interact, they say, you please tell us what we are supposed to do. So if you can give a throw some light on that.
First of all, thank you, Mr. Shankar, and I really I feel proud saying that I am with the the very strong and knowledgeable and distinguished panel today, right? Uh, Gary sir has mentioned a very interesting thing. Actually, he said that
Yeah.
the from history to what we are doing it today, right? I put this
Correct.
in the same perspective, saying that I believe saying that the future is people plus technology and people plus. When I say technology and people plus, there are two important part to it. One, because we need physical presence to basically mitigate certain disturbances, certain reaction to certain things, and all those, especially reacting on time and making sure that things takes place. This is one. The other thing is that it leads to another very interesting thought process, saying that the way technology is disrupting our life, the way the 5G or the machine learning or the other things are coming up, right? How to ensure saying that the people plus come into place? As you asked me, I'll say that there are four basic parameters which we need to look at. Number one, as where we need to technology and what kind of a technology we need to use. This is number one, right? Second thing which is important in saying that, how you ensure saying that the people who are there to use the technology, they are skilled to do that, they have enough knowledge to do it, right? That's the training need to give a lot of emphasis. And third part is that what kind of a technology need at what kind of a risk to mitigate what kind of a risk, right? One of the best examples, if you look at that recently, there's an issue which has happened in Germany somewhere, where intruders have entered into a plant and they disrupt the whole, they entered there and they stop the whole plant functioning, right? So if you look at from that particular perspective, it's important to be a man, to be there who understand technology, and he has a right kind of an SOP which is defined for him, saying that if this incident happen, and then what next. And the other part is that how the technology develop in coming years, saying that can I recognize a guy by the facial recognition, saying that his tense doesn't look great and doesn't sound well, and I understand from his body language, and machines tell me saying that this guy looks an intruder, or he's a fake guy, or he's trying to introduce to there. But the biggest challenge for us is there are three questions which comes out of that, right? First, how long and how much you can trust in technology. Second thing is that, right, how well our security forces, or the security guard forces or managers are equipped to basically understand and the new technology. And the third part is that, as I've said, that people plus, saying that technology should not be considered as a manpower reduction game. You need to look at what kind of a value it add to the customer, to the people, and the most important part is that to a particular organization. The other thing which I say is that how technology can be used in other parts of the security, not only the guarding, in the investigation, right? In cash management, in many other activities, right? And those things will, as you mentioned, that by 2030 the target is, and Gary has already mentioned, saying that we need to write kind of a paper, come out of that, and then need to put plan in place and do it. um, the way I look at is that the future is basically of people plus, and if we are ready to accept that, then we need to put a lot of efforts in training, writing manuals, standard, or something which will help the industry.
Great, Mr. Mehta. I think you have given a very insightful thought in terms of people plus as a concept. I think I like that concept very well. To build upon it, somewhere we can also use that concept in terms of creating a paper. It can have a lot of essence of mentioning what is people plus and how relevant it is in a given environment. Taking from that, my next question is here with Mr. Charlie. Uh, I would like to understand from you, like how as an industry alone, I'm giving a perspective here that how as an industry alone can build an ecosystem which is dependent on research and development in a modern technology within such a short period. Of course, considering, say, for next 5 to 7 years, if we are trying to build a platform which is an integration of manpower and technology. So how do you think the ecosystem can be built based on some research and considering the current scenario?
Thank you very much for that question. And thank you, Gary and Mahendra, for sharing your thoughts as well. It's really interesting. So I think that trying to answer your question, because it's a very big question. We can see how much the technology's moved on in the last, even just, I would say, 2 or 3 years. And when I joined the security industry in 2011, if you compare the video analytics and facial recognition that was available to the market back then, is worlds apart from what's available now. And so if you look at that and just how quickly things are progressing as well, I think it's much more even exceeding people's expectations now, the accuracy and the performance that you can get from analytics and facial recognition. And a lot of that is related to the introduction of AI, which has become more commercially available in the last few years. And part of the driver of that as well is, well, there's different things. One is that hardware processing power is becoming sort of more commercially viable. And so these supercomputers enable companies like Real Networks to invest a lot more into AI. It also means that by the cost coming down, you can actually offer the technology to regular customers who before wouldn't have been able to afford supercomputers. In addition, it's through the size of the amount of data that's becoming available as well. So as many of us probably, I'm sure all of us know, but not everyone would know. Particularly AI is all about the amount of data that you've got and the amount of data that you can train your system on. So I think that what the industry needs to do over the next few years is sort of collaborate together. The hardware guys doing a great thing of bringing out more powerful hardware, particularly sort of in cameras or that can be installed at the edge, which makes it more commercially viable, not just for government customers who have got big budgets to use electronic security systems, but also more commercial customers and customers like schools, for example, who don't have the same big defense budgets, but at the same time, it's incredibly important for them to benefit from this technology. But what we can do on a software level is sort of sharing the data and the AI data sets to train the algorithms on, because that's the challenge really is where do you get all of this data from, especially if you're training a facial recognition algorithm. In the case of Real Networks, we've got a background in we had an app called Real Times, which was a photo sharing app, and people would give their consent and opt into using the facial recognition part, and that helped us to build our AI data set. But there is a challenge in getting big data sets of faces to train an AI algorithm on for facial recognition. So, I think that in the next few years, there needs to be more sort of collaboration within the industry that in sharing this data. And you can see huge benefits when you have leaders in camera manufacturers and video management systems and PSIMs working together with software companies and with facial recognition, because it just makes it much more seamless and it makes it more available, I suppose, to the people that need the technology.
Great, Mr. Charlie. I think what you said is very much pertinent in a given environment where technology upgrade and technology adaptation is happening at a quick pace. And thanks to AI opportunities, which can be built based on the data sets which can be created over a period of time, I think definitely it has got a lot of potential to create a man-tech kind of environment. Here, I'd like to ask Mr. Gary Singh, sir, would you like to share some thoughts on the same point what Charlie was trying to explain from a perspective of adaptation in our environment here in India? If you can add some more points on that.
Sure. In fact, I would like to mention that the adoption of security overall in India is not only at par with the global players, rather, a lot of time I've seen is far more innovative than even some of the global locations. So, if you look at the risk environment in India, it's very diverse, and not only very diverse, it is having a huge amount of dynamism in it. When I say that, what I mean, let's say you're soon going to have elections in 3 states, the risk environment changes all of a sudden. You have monsoons coming in. If you're in a Bombay,
Changes.
Chennai, all of a sudden you're worried about something else rather than a theft.
Yeah.
So at the same time, the trend of risk in India is very, very dynamic. So that's how a security professional, as well as the security system in India, has been far more robust than anywhere in the world. And if I may take the liberty, since it's Indians on both sides, somebody who's securing and somebody who's the opposite side, both have a huge amount of innovation and creativity. So, as a
Yeah.
security professional, you need to be very innovative and creative. Otherwise, the other guy will swamp you. So, considering that, the use of electronics, use of analytics is very robust, and India has very openly adopted these. I may also take this statement off to, let's say, IT industry very specifically. Now, IT industry is having a lot of consistency. So what Accenture will do in USA, they'll do it here as well. What Google will do in possibly Philippines will do it here as well. So that's how there is a lot of good adoption of technology and a lot of electronics as well as even analytics is put into place. In fact, if I go one point further to IT industry, uh, most of the campuses of IT companies in India are more secure than respective campuses back in US. In fact, hardly any company in India who's in IT sector will not be ISO 27001 qualified. All of them are. Because when this complete outsourcing was taking place, there was also a lobby which says we should not outsource because information can get theft. So Indians worked hard and said, here's ISO 27001, I'm more secure than you now. So considering that scenario, I think we are not only at par, we are a lot of time ahead of a lot of others with all the innovation and creativity that we provide, and any technology which is now being built up wherever has to take care of Asian needs, India included, because Asia has more diversity of risk. If those technologies are not successful in Asia, then you hardly have a playing ground, because see, the time is gone now. Any new technology, product, software you bring in, you enjoy a very small lead, and this premium that you could have earned out of creating a product or a solution finishes very soon, because yet another company comes with a larger or a better or something else which is needed by the
Yeah.
market. So considering that, India and Asia also has to be very important checkpoint in any global innovators, because if you are successful, you have a very large market to play, whereas security needs in only, let's say, if I call it the developed world, will end up being much lesser than what is needed in Asia, and it'll only take around 10 to 12 years for Africa to also reach here and start demanding the same technologies of security which are elsewhere.
Very true, very true. I think you have put it in a very right perspective with respect to what is there in India and what should be on a global level. From taking this point from here, I would like to ask one question to Mr. Mahinder. Sir, how do you ensure the loss prevention when threats are not limited to physical alone? It is very relevant from a man guarding industry or from an any security perspective. That how do you ensure the loss prevention when the threats are not limited to physical alone? It can be any form of threats. So what is your take and how do you work on that particular point, sir?
I just what Gary has said, that it make a lot of sense, and I'm just sharing what was a thought process a decade back, saying that all the security budget is eaten at the breakfast table, right, by the boards, right? It's no more there, right? So it's no more there. So
Yeah.
when I say it's no more there, that means now everybody is trying to move towards the technology, whether it's a egress point, whether it's a loading dock, whether it's a supply chain, whatever it is, right? And this has transformed security in India in last one decade, right? And you know the most important part is that, right, when I say people plus, saying that how we need to learn from those industries who are basically using technology to ensure, saying that they have a right kind of a program for the loss prevention, right? Now, if you look at the as you asked for the loss prevention and threats, other things, right? So now, as I've said that, right, and and Charlie has mentioned about artificial intelligence, and the big data and all those things. How these all different technologies, from video to ingress to outgress to the locks and all those things. How these technology come together and give some kind of a input to the business, or input to the security heads or the security guard, saying that an analysis comes up and say that this is what the suspicion is happening, this is what I suspect, and you need to look at that. In that, a lot of machine learning will go, a lot of AI will go, right? A lot of what do you call the people plus thought process, or the people mindset will get into that, and that will help the whole complete loss prevention program. I'm sure when we heard a decade back saying that there's a GPS in the supply chain trucks and all, right? People who say that what is going to happen, right? Now people say it must, right? Now people are moving ahead and talking about saying that even the payment, they're talking about the loading docks, they're talking about each and every part of it. I think it's being a technology leaders, real network and all, they need to look at something, right, which comes out or give an analysis of the complete gambit, from CCTV to the ingress and outgress, alarms, to the docking loads, loading docks and all those things. If something comes out of that as a part of an AI, then I'm sure that will be more secure. But I think, as Gary has said, that the security risks keep changing, right, and we need to keep updating ourselves into that.
Very well said. I personally feel loss prevention is not restricted to physical alone, considering the security threats which are there in multiple industry. The opportunity what technology brings in here is basically to address the concerns of various industry where there can be a potential financial loss as well, or potential life-threatening kind of scenario as well. Those kind of areas can be addressed using technology for a varied kind of industry, and that is something what we are also saying in last couple of years, maybe in last 2 3 years. The demand from different industries have started flowing in, trying to understand what kind of scenarios, security scenarios can be built in, and what are the things which we can work upon and bring in as a technology part. I think here again I would like to take few points from Gary as well, because I know he has been working on various such projects with different industries where he can bring a very different perspective to the discussion from this particular point. Sir, will you like to add some points on this?
No, sure. I think, see, especially when you're looking at uh, diversity and various industries, uh, something which immediately emerges, and if you look at the market trend attached to it, there is certain level of productization. And moment you are able to do a productization, your consumer understands, it becomes easy, it becomes at least measurable, and a lot of things come into it. Now look at the overall growth of the Indian security industry. Since all sectors, whether the small, middle, or large companies, do understand this product called security guard, and look at the growth rate,
Yeah.
right? At all sectors, everybody needs it. And now let's look at the next product called camera. Even this has been now well understood. The results are measurable, you know what you want to achieve, and look at the growth of this particular uh, aspect as well. Wherever we have left subjectivity, that is not grown. For example, access control system. The smaller companies, they don't use it. Middle companies don't use it. Most of the companies which are having global mandates, standards, they're using it. Go to next stage, penetration system. So whenever we are able to productize and make for the consumer easy to understand, easy to decide, your own growth will be huge. Similarly, when we are talking about this amalgamation, it is still a challenge, not only in India, everywhere, that we are not able to tell a particular customer what all I'm bringing, what is the measurable quantity you're going to get, what is the service you're going to get. Moment we start a productization of this solution, you will find the same rate of growth as we've seen guards and CCTVs and everything else. So that is one additional point I'd like to bring out. And at the same time, when we work with as security consultants, we work with a lot of large campuses. We have been working with aerospace, IT, even a lot of players within the entertainment side. So everybody recognizes they need security. We work with them. In all these designs, when we're working with architects and engineers and everybody else, with a lot of diligent work, these architects, engineers, everybody have a measurable scale. You're making a building, this is per square feet, rupees I will charge you for my consulting. You need this standard, this quality, this per square feet will be your expense for creating the infrastructure. And you need on top of it, this will come in. Now let's see same thing in the security side. No measurable scale. We will say, I'll let you know if this and that, if you need that. So we have failed to productize. That is where the industry growth is also getting hindered. So let's productize this solution, which is, I will not even call it amalgamation of only electronic surveillance and guarding, but overall solution. And good thing is that the man guarding companies have realized that they need that electronic portion. So they are buying continuously the electronic companies. The electronic companies have not realized that they need guards to make the solution. So they are not buying from these companies. So if we have got the right idea and God has sent it to us, let's progress further. Let's productize solutions so that we are able to enjoy the same scalable growth as a lot of others have enjoyed after creating good products.
Mr.
Very
Shankar,
true. Very true.
Mr. Shankar, I just like to add one very interesting aspect to it. As Gary has said that security companies are trying to find the electronic, right? I'm looking at some kind of a solution when now the guarding company comes and say that I'll give you the mix of both. As I've said, that people plus, right? I'll give you the technology, I'll give you the people, right? And not only you will reduce your risk, not only you will reduce your loss, right? But this is a comprehensive solutions, right? Like look at the industry, like medical, right? Look at HVAC parts and all those things. They come up with a complete solution, and they say that okay, this is not only one part. There are five things together, and there is a solution. And that's it. When I was saying earlier, I said that how we use how we use the future technology, right? How we make sure that the AI of access control and the video and the ingress and outgress, right, come together and give some kind of a solution to a customer, which is basically win for him. It's win for the employees. It's win for the guarding and as well as the electronic surveillance companies.
Very true.
But
Very
what
true. I think.
I mean, this.
Yeah, Mr. Charlie, please.
I think.
Please.
Well, so I mean, I think this is where education comes in, and especially when there's new technology and it's moving so quickly, so much education is needed about what the technology can do, what it's capable of, and as sort of experts in electronic security, we need to set people's expectations, because sometimes people see it as you either go with manned guards or you go with electronic security. And as Mahendra, I like the phrase "people plus" because it's not about replacing manned guards. It's about giving them sort of superpowers in a way, because there's so much that technology can do. For example, going back to facial recognition, you can have database of tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people who are criminals, etc. And for an average person, I think it's supposed to be that a normal person can recognize something like 5,000 faces. They probably can't put a name to the face, but they recognize it. And even super recognizers, which makes up like 1 or 2% of the population, can recognize about 10,000 people. So there's no comparison in what technology can do and what a person can do. But the technology is not there to replace the person. It's there to give that security guard, the special powers they need. And this is where I think the application of augmented reality is really interesting, because you're starting to see now people trying to use augmented reality glasses, for security. And a few years ago, at my previous company, we were testing facial recognition on the augmented reality glasses. They have a little camera in them that when it looks at someone and recognizes them, it alerts that person that they're maybe on a watch list or they're a VIP or something. It's about, again, educating. Look, the facial recognition or the video analytics or whatever is not there to replace what the human being is doing, because you still need someone to apprehend the criminal, but it's to give them capabilities that they wouldn't have otherwise.
Very true, Mr. Charlie. Very true. I'd like to add 2 points here from the conversation what Mr. Charlie, Mahendra, and Mr. Gary has tried to put in. See, productization is something which I am completely in favorable for, because unless you productize a solution, the adaptability will not be there, and that is one of the biggest challenge I personally see from an e-surveillance industry currently facing through. So from a productization point of view, they are not able to put a complete seamless solution and offer to the customer. That is one part of the story. The second part of the story, I'll take it from Mr. Mahendra Singh's perspective, that it has to be people plus. Unfortunately, when you talk about man tech solution in India, that is manpower and technology solution in India, the first thing it goes as what kind of cost optimization can happen. It never comes at manpower. How do I improve the efficiency of a manpower using technology? It is like, how do I optimize my cost using technology? So these are two different variables which currently customers are trying to toggle upon. But yes, we have to understand that technology should be used to improve the efficiency, not to optimize the cost. The day when we start looking at it from that perspective, I think the horizon will be very different. Similarly, as what Mr. Charlie was trying to put in terms of using AI as a platform to build a solution, I think unless we create a end seamless product offering to the customer, the adaptability will not be the pace at what we are actually looking at it. And from this particular discussion, I have one very important, relevant question which I'd like to understand. That I'd like to ask here. Any one of you can answer, please. I'm not giving it to any one particular individual. It's like, what are the parameters which we need to define to measure the effectiveness of this whole solution? Whether it can be a Mantech solution, whether it can be AI solution, it can be any solution. But how do we define those parameters? Whether it should be defined based on the business outcome, or whether it should be based on the risk outcome or a risk mitigation part, or should we look at it from a financial perspective? So what is your thoughts on this particular point? Please, sir. I would request any one of you can take the lead and take it forward.
The way I look at is that the most important part is the risk part, right? And then come the cost, right? And the important part is that how relevant that technology or the mentech is for me for another 5 years. If you have the flexibility to continue or upgrade that, right? The way software gets upgraded, the way the hardwares get upgraded. If I'm developing a technology with an open source which can help me, right, to take it for a longer run, for 5 years, for 6 years, right, then it make a lot of sense. So for me, I will go with the risk, right, the cost, and the future adoption of the technology in terms of hardware and software.
And I
Charlie,
think
any
you've got
inputs
to
from
look at the
you?
results. Yeah, I think you've got to look at the results, and there's from a cost perspective, there's no point in reducing your costs if it's not going to be as secure. But I mean, we've just done a pilot project for a car manufacturer, and so what they wanted to do was use the facial recognition as a method of time and attendance. So at the moment, they have manned guards, if you like. They have people at the reception who are viewing the staff coming in, and they have access control cards for all of the employees, and every employee is supposed to scan their card when they arrive. And the reason they wanted to use facial recognition was to see, is everyone that comes scanning their card, because they know that in this factory they have lots of expensive equipment, and they know that people are stealing things. And in 1 week, they saw that on average, when they had 1,500 employees scanning their cards in, the facial recognition was detecting about 100 people who were not scanning their cards. So there was a very clear way that they could measure the technology had a benefit. Obviously, not all 100 of those people is stealing things from the factory, but it is an indication to them that there is a problem, and that the access control cards and the manned guards is not doing what it's not doing the complete job. And therefore they can then look at, okay, what is the cost of implementing this, weighing it up against the cost of what they're losing in theft. But also, it's not, with security, it's not just about the cost, is it? It's about people's lives, and it's about people's safety. And another industry that facial recognition has a big benefit, going back to loss prevention, is retail. And although on one hand you've got, what is the losses or what is the shrinkage in a retailer where people are stealing goods, but there's also the question of, okay, what's happening to the staff, and is the employer looking after the shopkeepers, the customer service managers in that shop? Because when someone comes in to steal, they're not just coming in empty-handed. They've maybe got a knife or a syringe or a weapon. So again, it's great if you can reduce your shrinkage, but ultimately, the employer has a duty of care to look after their employees. So if again, the technology needs to work, it needs to be, and with facial recognition or something, you can see the alerts you're getting when someone comes in, they're on a watch list, so you can see it's working. And you don't know if that person was going to steal something, but at least and you can alert your manned guards that someone's come in and they're putting your employees at risk. So it's always important to look at the results of when you test the technology, but also then you can look at sort of what is the cost. Is it actually saving you money, but also is it dramatically improving the safety of the people that you're supposed to be looking after?
Shankar, I just like to add one thing. Shankar, sorry,
Yes,
I
sir.
just like to add one thing here.
Yeah,
The
please.
most important part is that when I talk about futures technology, when I talk about risk, when I talk about cost, right, we forget one. That is, what the smart solution I have. Do I have a smart solution which can survive me for some long term, which gives what do you call, a confidence to the people, say that I invest X amount of dollars today, right?
Yeah.
And with every year, if I need to add the same amount of dollar, why I will not love to invest that, right? So I love to invest
Yeah.
in X dollar when it continues for some time, right? And I can keep upgrading my hardware and software, right? And that's the reason I say we as an industry lacking on the smart solution where everything
Yeah.
comes together, whether it's PIR, whether it's CCTV, access control, right? And trying to give a solution to the organization, right? Where they say that in next, because in next 5 years you use this technology, this will help you. It's very difficult to say that if I put my camera today, my loss prevention is by 10%, right? We
Yeah.
can't say
It's
that,
very difficult.
right?
You
But we
can't say
build
that.
on with time, saying that in last previous or few years back, this was this. When I put these smart solutions, right, then my
Very.
the actual thing will come. So output will come later on, rather than saying that I change the bulb and my electricity bill goes down. It will not happen in security, right? It need to be
Absolutely.
practiced, need to be implemented, and then basically it need to look at, right? And that's the reason I say that smart solution, the risk mitigation and the cost factors going to play a large role in basically in coming days.
Correct. Very true. Very true. One more point, just to add a point over here. See, the challenges what we face with various industries offering or various customer offering this e-surveillance or a digital electronic solution, a security solution, the priority for spend in security is not going up the way it is going for other related activity within an organization. So still people feel there is a manpower which is deployed, something getting added, they are looking at more from a cost optimization. So this whole concept of cost optimization can change once there is a enough education which is provided to the organization, where the organization understands that security is not a cost optimization methodology, whereas it is a methodology where you can actually derive far more than what you have invested over a period of time using a right solution for a right problem. So that is something will come over a period of time in terms of awareness. This is what my feeling is as a security solution provider. You guys handle from an
You
industry
know,
perspective.
yeah, Mr. Shankar, very interesting actually, right?
Yeah,
Uh, I don't like the word called optimization, right? The
yeah,
way it has been related to reduce the cost. No, optimization never mean to
exactly.
reduce the cost.
Correct,
Optimization is
correct,
saying that how you optimize your resources to increase the efficiency, right? If I'm
correct,
doing an optimization project, I will not love to see guards coming from 50 to 100 numbers or 100 to 50 numbers, right? I will look at
correct,
optimization by using the mentec, right? And as I've said that,
correct.
what kind of a cost benefit, or what kind of a cost benefit analysis I do down the line 5 years or 10 years, how it looks like. I think that's the key.
Of and this is exactly what the users, the various organizations looking at security need to understand from a perspective what you have very correctly aptly tried to put it across in right wording. Thanks for doing that, Mr. Mahinder. Amazing. uh, Taking that clue from there, my next question is here to Mr. Gary on the safety part, like how a culture of safety can be built in a business when safety and security aspect is given the lowest priority just by outsourcing the same to the third party. So today most of the security elements are completely outsourced. So one of the concerns are coming because there are multiple outsourcing partner on a pan-India basis. We don't have a standardization for any e-surveillance in India. Everybody is trying to pitch in their concept, their solution in a most optimal manner, and everybody is trying to do their best. While doing that, you don't get a consistency, you don't get a standard, a benchmark to measure with, and you also don't arrive at what is good, what is average, and what is below par. So we are not able to define that in a very clear terms. In that scenario, Mr. Gary, I would like to understand how a culture of safety can be built in a business of safety and security aspect, giving the lowest priority. Please, I'm looking forward to hear from you.
Yeah, so the statement itself, once we know that safety, security get a very low priority, is
Yeah,
surely, I will say, heart wrenching in a way. And
yeah,
while we can boast that we may be doing great in terms of security professionals, innovation, and all, security and safety as a culture for India is a challenge. And this priority in different countries and companies changes. And when we are looking at India as a safety security culture, it cannot be left only for the companies to change and define. Because we have situations of somebody joining a multinational company and attending fire drill first time in his or her life. Forever, whichever school and college they were part of or residential societies they were staying, they are not taught about safety security. So while we discuss at the buildings and companies, but the challenge is much larger. The challenge is at a country level, and somewhere or the other, and I know there are a lot of important people in this conference, and I would like to appeal to them that somewhere or the other, even our Prime Minister on next 15th August should start about Surakshit Bharat. He made that big announcement of Swachh Bharat. Now we need to look at Surakshit Bharat. The concept has to change at country level rather than we thinking that only within the companies and buildings we're going to change it. That's the need. And what specifically we can do for our buildings and details, obviously we have to ensure that whichever priority it is, but something which is mandatory and must to do cannot be compromised with. Whether it's a basic
Correct.
program, induction training, safety, drills to be done, even if a fire drill or any other drill is taking place, the CEO has to ensure that doesn't serve exceptions to 60% of the people who are in the building. Then
Correct.
why are you doing that drill?
Correct.
You can give an option. We are doing a fire drill. Somebody wants to come out and have a samosa and tea. Please do that and go back. So the addressal has to be at country level. Whatever a company has decided should be done as mandatory with no exceptions. And at the same time, this overall safety security should become comprehensive when employees are integral part of it rather than they are being served safety and security. It cannot be that we are working to ensure our employees are safe. No, employees have to work to ensure they are safe. So this has to be very comprehensive, inclusive. I think these are few points which require. Although, I mean, I wish somebody's got patience to listen. I can continue with this answer for 3 4 days, but I think these are certain points
Understood.
I'll definitely like to mention.
So, taking that point from there, Mr. Mahendra, do you think outsourcing has got? Do we need to look at outsourcing in a more structured manner with a lot of defined way of handling things when it comes to security? Does that help, or do you think are we doing enough to do that part?
There are two very important factors. One is the knowledge set and the skill set, right? Where we need to define saying that what are the knowledge set and skill set that required in a particular industry. I'm a firm believer of that. Every industry type, actually, if you look at chemical to aviation to the gas, right, they had a different kind of a requirement. So we need to define those skill set and knowledge set for the people need to be trained on that, right? And people need to know saying that, if I'm going to oil and gas industry, these are my risk, actually, whether there's a safety risk, whether there's a security risk, right? And I need to follow these, SOPs or these guidelines or whatever you call it, right? I think industry need to pay a lot of heed to it. Actually, we need to have industry specific, trainings and industry specific knowledge and skill set. Now,
Right.
journalistic journalistic perspective, it's okay that you know how to check the access card, how to do it, and all those things, right? It's like technology, as I said, that people plus. So oil and gas need a different kind of a technology than the software industry, right? So then the
Correct.
skill manpower, the guarding also need to be different, right? Then only we'll able to achieve what we want to achieve. I like what Gary sir has said, that saying that somebody need to talk about Surakshit Bharat, right? And it should be the part of curriculum. People need to understand, and saying that what I'm supposed to do in case of fire, what I'm supposed to do in case of bomb threat. I like when the lot of radios and these messages comes on during 15th August and 26th January, saying that high risk, don't touch this, don't go to the dustbin and all. It should be continued by the municipal corporation or by the state governments, on a regular basis. And that's the key. Awareness is the key. We need to make people aware of saying that what's their role, right? Otherwise, what people generally think, right, it's a role of police, it's a role of army, it's a role of
Exactly.
paramilitary forces. They will take care of it. I don't have to do anything on that, right? But I must say that the continuous campaign will help. The continuous campaign will help. I like the disaster management approach, actually. If you look at that,
Yeah.
they have been done a extensive, in last 2 to 3 years, they have done an extensive
Lot
campaign
of
saying that
ground.
if
Yeah.
what you need to do with water logging and all those things, that campaign need to be started. And I'm with Gary sir saying that PM should say that Swachh Bharat to hai hai, karna hi hai, right? Now we need to make India a Surakshit Bharat also, right?
It can be Swachh or Surakshit Bharat. Correct?
Swachh or
Swachh and
Surakshit Bharat,
Surakshit
correct.
Bharat. Swachh
Correct,
or
correct.
Surakshit Bharat. I think that would be a right campaign to fit in. Hopefully, people listening can take this clue from here. Uh, Mr. Charlie, you have any specific points with respect to the services through a third party outsourced functionality, any experience, understanding on how it can be devised?
I think that if you're referring to sort of outsourcing with regard to sort of bringing in, it's important to accept what you what you know, what your knowledge is, and then by outsourcing to experts, you can learn from their experience. And I think that in some of the international work that I've seen, there's been a great exchange of knowledge within the security industry in different countries. So, certain countries which have had to deal with maybe a more severe terrorist threat than others can come and learn and teach sort of best practice. But also what I've seen is that more developing countries very quickly overtake them when it comes to adopting technology. And the UK is a good example where there's the UK for a long time has been one of the leaders in security and technology, but at the same time now, we've become a bit slow in the adoption of new technologies. And from the some of the knowledge I've done in Asia and in India, I know the technology is being adopted a lot quicker. And so now actually, maybe the outsourcing at one point was sort of bringing in British consultants and British companies come and sort of show how it's done in the UK. But now it's turning the other way around. And we're sort of looking at the way things are being done in India and the technologies are being used. And we're sort of learning from you now. So I think, trying to go back to your question, outsourcing is important, but not in a way where you end up just relying on those people, but actually it's where you're learning from them and then you can sort of become self-sufficient. And as has already been said, safety and security is the role of everyone. So we shouldn't just pay someone to come in and do the security for us. We should actually be trying to learn and become self-sufficient, and because then we start to innovate.
Very true. I personally agree on one point here that we are basically an outsourcing organization for providing e-surveillance to not many customers. My experience had been uh, this whole outsourcing part, there is no standardization, there is no set parameter. If as an industry we come forward and put a template in place, I think it will drastically improve the overall service deliverables. All the plus minuses can be addressed in such a fashion that we all move to a common objective of providing services at a certain level, not below that, at a certain level. That brings in a lot of efficiency into the whole process. This is my point. I just like to place it and very close to my point as well. uh, Taking it from there, I have a very pertinent question to Mr. Gary over here. I'll have one question with each one of them. This is one question we'd like to ask from Mr. Gary. Can the adaptation of new technology be not sufficient to meet the security challenge? Is it whatever adaptation we are doing, is it sufficient to meet the security challenge? That is one. And how the companies can collaborate with the education research organization to encourage acceptance and amalgamation of new surveillance system, because we see there is huge knowledge gap. Building that knowledge gap by a service provider is a huge task in hand, because the objective for an organization to adopt e-surveillance is something else. Objective for a service provider like us to provide e-surveillance is something else. So how can we marry these objectives? And what do you think about current technology? Is it good enough to manage the security challenges?
So it's a very relevant question, and at the same time, actually, there are a lot of overall parts of the ecosystem which drive a particular answer to this. My biggest challenge as of now is, and I do not know how many countries this statement is applicable, but at least in South Asia and few other Asian countries that I've closely worked with, I can confirm that this particular market is product driven or salesman driven, not consumer driven as yet.
Very true.
And I know this will be very painful even to the consumers to hear it, but this is the actual situation. Something that has been made is being sold as this is the best thing you can ever get. So company A goes out and company B comes in. They say, no, no, that's not the best thing. This is the best thing. One of the major reasons for this continues to be a salesman driven and a product driven is also the lack of knowledge and creativity of the customer himself or herself. A lot of time, the customer is not making a solution. Rather, the salesman who's coming in is looking towards that person, then what should be the solution? So if the ecosystem goes like this, then any kind of customer need based research will not take place. So, first of all, there's a need that it has to be customers' realization that what exactly they need. And unless you're a very large customer, or possibly you're part of a federation which is able to take up your demand and then start talking about it, your customized and individual needs will not be fulfilled. So, research is one of the commodities which is most expensive in the world. And this research has primarily, that's how, remained within the boundaries of countries who are developed and they have sufficient funds to ensure that they are able to do research. So, if you look at even overall technology wise, forget only the security and ESS, none of the Indian institutes are part of the top 100 list when it comes to the best technology company. And the prime reason is because they don't do the IITians, such great product we feel as India have, they can do great after they reach US. You can be Sundar Pichai, you can be Satya Nadella out of top 20 IT companies. Within the top three people, at least 75% of those companies have Indians origin.
Correct.
Because finally, that research is available there, not here. And that also becomes a challenge. Like I earlier said, unless the Asia market is seen as a potential market, a large market, research will not happen for us. And we'll continue to adopt standards or the practices which were more suitable for those developed countries where the research was taking place. So when you have said a very important point about research and possibly the education institutions can participate and things like those, I think first of all, the customer needs to become intelligent and smart enough to say, this is what I need. And then possibly some kind of industry body has to operate locally, identify some good institutes where this research can be not only performed, but can be effectively monetized for future success. If this research is able to fund itself, you will have more and more research taking place. So that's a bit of a lacuna where this particular position stops. But I'm very sure very soon I'm hoping that there'll be a leader within the industry, whether locally or from outside, will do this. I can already confirm that I've seen some of the large CCTV companies have now made R&D centers in India. And they are looking at specific Indian and Asia Pacific conditions to bring the next generation of the products. They are even sensitive to the fact that uh, there are locations in India which can see plus 50 degrees Celsius, and during winter they can be huge minus degrees. So at the same time, even if you look at the country needs, if you go outside the purview of corporate needs, uh, we have Indo-Tibetan border police, we have Rajasthan where there is desert, we have Northeast where there's huge humidity. So even the products which have to come out somewhere have to go through these huge requirements. So things are happening. Still things are happening by non-Indian players. India has not done enough of research or not even thought enough that this can be something very useful for us. But I hope with few of the positive things I just mentioned during last 2 3 minutes, hope this will have a snowballing effect and more research takes place and more effective products can come.
Great, Mr. Gary. I think it was a uh, very detailed analysis of the current scenario, which is a very practical case as well. And I fully understand lack of knowledge by the customer is one element, and secondly, from the ownership is also there with the service provider to come up something which is more relevant in the current environment. and which is not a cut paste copy of what is available in developed country, as what you have just mentioned. It has to be more customized to suit our requirement, customized to suit our environment, and also to meet our expectation in our environment here. Uh, let's go to the next question. This is a question to Mr. Charlie, that considering that the technology will play an important role in the future with regard to security, there is no doubt on that. Everybody understands the importance of technology in this space. How and what should be the approach of an organization, and they should adopt for effectively implementing the same? See, one is everybody understands the importance of technology and security, but what should be an approach which an organization should adopt for implementing the same? Because one is many organizations wanted cutting edge technology in security space, but they have various other challenges. So, looking at this whole scenario, what is your thoughts on that?
So I think that when wanting to adopt a new technology and electronic security systems, it's really important to have a sort of the input of a consultant. And as I think Gary was saying, you don't just want sales guys coming and telling you that they have the best product and that you need it, because you need to have uh, a wider perspective and think about, okay, how do we make sure that this is future proof? How do we make sure that it's integrated with the other systems that we've got? How do we make sure that the technology is user friendly? And also, following on from what Gary is saying about the technology needs to be um, right for the India market, and facial recognition and number plate recognition and things is a real clear example where you do need to look at technologies which have been trained with data sets from the country. Real networks is great for facial recognition. We have a facial recognition engine with one of the least racial bias, which meaning that the accuracy with faces of people from India, from America, from Africa is very consistent. But not all companies are able to offer that if they haven't trained their facial recognition with data sets from people from India. So you do need to look at each of those individual technologies and make sure that it's suitable. But my real strong advice would be to take a very whole looking at everything approach, making sure that you can't just add intelligence and software to a CCTV system which doesn't have the foundations, that doesn't have future-proof cameras, that doesn't have the network that's needed. So I think you need to. I guess this is where outsourcing comes back in. You need to have people that could come in, a consultant or a trusted integrator, to help design it and to give you a full idea of what technologies are out there, what to look for. And it'd be great if the legislation can keep up. But this is one of the challenges: is the technology is moving so quickly. It's very difficult in not just electronic security, but you see this in social media as well, don't we? About very difficult for legislation to keep up. So as an industry, we need to be setting the standards and making sure that if someone's trying to adopt this technology, they know what to expect, and then they're not just sort of hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, very true, Charlie. In fact, that is something what, from a technology perspective, which is getting outdated quite fast. There, I would like to reemphasize the point which was raised by Mr. Mahendra, that we need to find a platform which can be future ready, so that we can upgrade it on the same hardware, on the same software, and which can be utilized over a period of time, so that the overall optimization happens not immediately, but over a period of next 3 to 5 years time. If we are able to give that horizon to any platform, any technology, I think that brings in more value to the offering. What is there. My last question for this session is for Mr. Mahendra Singh Karakoti, who has been giving a lot of very insightful information. Sir, here my question is very simple: that what are the challenges associated with Mantech solution and how the same can be mitigated effectively? Because we are talking about a lot of Mantech kind of environment. amalgamation of human resource and technology. So there are a lot of things people are talking about, but there are challenges associated with that. Few we have already discussed, but if you can elaborate what are the challenges and how we can mitigate that, can be a real eye opener for this particular discussion as well.
If you look at that, the future is basically of connected products. Future is basically
Yeah.
of what you call LTE, right? Long term evolution, which is going to come in technology and as well as in telecom, right? How well prepared we are, right? The best example is that look at the smartphone, right? Is easy to operate. How is easy to operate, right? If the guard is for him, is the technology is easy to operate, he will do it, right? If you make it so tough in terms of the software and the hardware, right, the digitization will be too tough for him to do it. So the most important part is that how you make that a product a user friendly. This is one, right? Second thing is that how you where your manpower is ready for the future or not. As I've said that in earlier, saying that what kind of a skill set and knowledge set is needed, right? And the important part is that, right, is technology is going to take over the guarding, or guard is going to take over the technology. The way I look at it is that God should take over the technology, right? Rides on it and give a better result to the company or to the nation, rather than technology riding on a God which he doesn't understand because it's too tough for him to understand and to take it forward, right? And to do the actual analysis and come up with the right kind of a result, right? And the last and important part is that creating awareness about it, creating awareness about facial recognition, creating awareness about biometrics, creating awareness about what do you call the future technologies and all that will help. And as I've said that you people are doing a great job, right? And you're talking about it, people will listen to it, they are getting future ready for that. And as I said that, make it user friendly, make it smart, right? And and ensure saying that the cybersecurity element, because the more you connect with the products, more you connect with all those things, how we ensure and how we train our people, they're aware of the cybersecurity aspect too.
Great, excellent. So I really like the point what you mentioned, that manpower should take over technology, not technology should take over manpower. I think that's a great takeaway on that part, which summarizes all the points what we are mentioning. I just request for final remarks from all three of you, Mr. Gary, to start with. If you
No, I think wonderful. I'm glad that from you and from Charlie and from Mahinder, I could pick up a lot of new things. And at the same time, like I always say, ISSM always brings out discussions which are feature oriented and thought provoking. So very glad to be here. Thank you so much.
thank you, Miss Charlie.
I think, yeah, it's been really helpful, and thank you for your questions and Gary and Mahendra's sort of wisdom that's been shared on this in this discussion. I think my takeaway from these kind of events is always that they're a great opportunity for innovation, and discussions like this are really helpful for innovating. And I suppose, in particular, related, going back to the subject of the amalgamation of ESS and man guarding industry by 2030, you know, the more that we discuss it, the more ways we can come up with how the technology can help the man guards. It's not going to replace them. We're not going to be getting robots suddenly coming in and doing their job, but we do need to collaborate together and look at the new cutting edge technology to see how and think about how it can be used for manned guards to make them more effective, efficient, and to make our workplaces and our public spaces safer and more secure.
Thank you, Mr. Charlie. Mr. Mahinder, your remarks,
First of all,
please.
I thank you, thanks a lot, and I feel proud that I'm part of this panel discussion. Um, the way I look at it is that, as I've said, that people plus in technology, right? If they are unmatched, if they are matched together, it can create wonders, right? And it's our responsibility as a professional to create that awareness among people, saying that this is what the future, and we need to make ourselves ready for the future. And once again, thank you, Mr. Shankar, right? And as I've said that I'm proud to be part of this, panel discussions. And thanks, Charlie. Thanks, Gary, sir. Thank you, Shankar.
Great, sir. Great. It was a very, I think, very intriguing discussion we had today. Some of the takeaways which I'm looking at is first, productization. I think that's a great concept, and I personally believe it in 100%, because once we have a productization kind of scenario, adaptability and measurability goes up drastically. That brings in that brings in more efficiency into the system what is getting deployed and can be managed. That is first part. The second part which I truly admire is the part of people plus technology. I think it's a great term, great coined word. People plus technology is going to be the future, and it all depends upon what kind of knowledge set and skill set we are going to help in developing it, both as a user and as a service provider, will determine the efficiency of the overall mantech as a solution which we are talking about. And lastly, from Mr. Charlie, the whole understanding about how technology can help various scenarios using artificial intelligence, using face recognition, using machine learning. We can develop and involve lot many technology elements to solve issues concerning a lot of organization in a most effective manner. And lastly, more important, when we are talking about optimization, it is not cost rationalization. It is more in terms of deriving better value from the solutions which are getting deployed, and with a more engagement from a user side and as well as from a service provider side. Thank you once again, gentlemen, for a very interesting conversation today. And I look forward to have more conversation with you guys in some other platform as well. Pleasure talking to all of you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure talking to all. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So those were very insightful deliberations articulated by our learned panel, and we thank them for the same. Amalgamation of electronic surveillance system and man-guarding industry is a very relevant topic. Technology adoption in the field of security has been phenomenal, and it is the need of the hour. The challenge is in what measure to merge the man-tech, these two aspects of humans and technology. Mr. Gary apprised us of the basic need of security from its history till the present times and how it has been evolving. He also emphasized on how the situation is so dynamic and how India has to be at par with the global advancements and innovations, and how R&D has to be more Asia specific, more India specific. Surakshit Bharat is also a very valid and much needed suggestion by Mr. Gary. Then we had Mr. Kamakoti with his inputs. Where do we need technology, what kind and what measure, and how to implement it, enlightening us on that, along with the concept of people plus, was Mr. Karakoti. And it's true that technology cannot supersede the humans, so the concept of people plus is very, very important. Building an ecosystem based on R&D is equally important, as highlighted by Mr. Bennett. Use of AI, analytics, robotics, electronics is very crucial, and how continuous education is needed in this field. Mr. Subramaniam, thank you for your perspicuous moderation. Thanks for making the discussion very thought-provoking and eliciting responses to your pertinent questions from our stalwarts who were in the panel. So with that, we conclude this session, but do join us again in the evening at 4 p.m. for a very interesting keynote address, the topic of which is Scope for Application of Artificial Intelligence in Security Business, Opportunities and Challenges. And this is going to be by our keynote speaker, Major General P.K. Malik. Panel discussion will be followed, it'll follow this keynote address, and the topic is use